Welcome to Mentech Computers Security Visualization. My name is Darren Manners. I'm the designer of Sphere of Influence 2.1 and Radius CP, and what we're going to be looking at is security visualization. So without further ado, let's move on to the first slide. Aren't we command prompt addicts? Reasons why we should not visualize security. In fact, I've put it down there twice. Aren't we command prompt addicts? That important? I think we do find very much within the security world that we do become very much introspective, and we do love the command prompts, and we look at people and say, well, geez, why can't you just type all these commands in? It's just as simple, rather than clicking on that executable or whatever. And at times we can get lost in that. Looking at numbers is fun. You try to tell that to my 12-year-old daughter when I try and explain network security. In fact, visualization is a very good way to get people into networking and computers and security fields. As my wife says, we always talk about ... 1, 2s, etc. I can see it all in my head. Yeah, some of us can. Some of us do have this ability. We have this natural ability to be able to visualize and see things within our head. But hopefully we're not missing anything, and that's why visualization is an aid. Graphics only get in the way, and to a certain point I agree. If the only reason we're needing graphics is to further elaborate a subject, and it's not really any benefit for us. And also when we start installing these things, there's 1,000 dependent libraries in Unix that you have to hunt down, and really we've gone beyond the bar graph and the little needle pointer that shows the speed of things. I mean, they're good in what they do, but really there's a lot more that we can do. It's not fast enough. I agree to a certain point again. At times it isn't fast enough. At times we do lose that initial look that we need. That's something that's going to grab hold of us. And we sit there and we watch and watch and watch, and things are so slow. And if you ever try to build Blade servers and run with Blade and VMware and ESX4 and vSphere, especially the vSphere, things visually it just seems to be a little bit slower nowadays. But again, it really depends upon the platform that you're putting them on, and is only useful after the event occurs. And that's that tends to be more university created visual tools, where they're looking at very large data sets. These guys, these very smart guys, need to look for new and bizarre ways to look at this data. And they're not always a tactical mindset. We're not always that on-the-ball mindset that we've got there. We're looking at large data sets, and that really is pretty much what visualization has been about, was looking at these large data sets and finding anomalies within them. And one of the reasons why I created Sphere of Influence was to create this tactical picture. And the reasons why we should create visualized security. It makes us easier to understand that large amounts of data on a real-time basis. If we can merge the visualization with real-time, we can really start to see what the big picture is. And there's no better way to display large amounts of data than graphically, and that's something that although we talk about one of the reasons why we shouldn't visualize large data isn't the speed, and it's only useful after the event occurs, we've very much got caught up in that post-facto analysis, going back and reviewing logs. But really, these logs, if we've got a tactical mindset, can really show us a great deal. Can intuitively show connections based upon graphical designs. During my time as a naval intelligence analyst, there was no better way than showing connections with individuals and visually mapping these connections, like cherry treeing them. My background was Royal Navy, and I was a communication technician, and mine was to intercept and analyze communications, which pretty much led me into my field. And it helps the overwhelmed security analyst, especially nowadays, where the security analyst is being asked to do a lot more things. And we usually go through that cycle whereby something is asked of us, and they have this initial impact on security. We want to really do security, and then after a year or so, it's kind of like, well, there's no compliance, or there's no audits coming up this year. It goes very quiet, and until something happens, then all number down and pumps gets money in. So yes, these days everything has a log, and I log everything. It's like a crime scene. You gather all the evidence and sift through and put all the pieces together. The problem is, unlike a crime scene, we gather everything. I mean, we have vast amounts of data, and a lot of it is just being able to visualize and bring this all together. And you tend not to be able to not limit the data you get, as you tend to be scared you might miss something. can help with real-time analysis. There are two worlds in the security visualization as I see it. One tends to be the academic and is concerned with finding new links and trends. The other tends to be commercial and is designed to give the a complete picture. SIEM. We've not really seen an open source SIEM. So the academic world tends not to be real time. It tends to be more post facto. Now there is some tools out, before everybody jumps on me, there is some good tools out there that do this, and we'll talk about them later. But they tend to do more post facto stuff. And then they're looking at anomalies and the bigger picture, as it were, where they're taking the whole data of the internet. And both worlds have their place, and one can argue that actually one does support the other. That is, once academic we find a way to visualize, but the problems commercially we try and implement in such a way as to be user friendly and real time. And I go back to my the egghead theory again, where sometimes you can know the square root of a can of beans but you can't open it, and this is where we're trying to load a new piece of security visualization software, and we're having to put multiple dynamic links, and it takes 2 or 3 hours, and it doesn't really find its grounding. Security visualization never takes off because it's harder to implement it. And I know a lot of people will disagree with me, but at times it does get to a point where it gets harder and harder to implement this. And we enable management to get a clearer picture, and really these are the guys that are going to be funding our projects. And yeah, you're a genius at reading logs, but if you've ever talked to your director and walked him through your log analysis, you're just going to see him glaze over and fall asleep. Put a big chart in front of him and he gets it. Remember, this is where the money comes from your next project, so you've got to be able to explain visually, and clearly and precisely to management what is going on and what the picture is. What if we could visualize events occurring in real time? I'm going to look at the War Games. War Games was my favorite movie of all time, and it probably got me in it, got me involved in the whole networking and computers, really, and really, to a lesser extent, the military. But more of the War Games network operations center idea. Do you think NORAD looks at their logs to see if a missile was launched? No. They visually see the world and events occur in real time. So we can visualize events in real time. We just need to follow the rules, and I'm going to give you some rules in the next slide. What if we could make these special events stand out? I bet a missile launch stands out from an aircraft flying overhead. Again, we have to follow the rules. I know you're going to say, doesn't an IPS do that? Yeah, it does, but it makes a lot of events stand out. In fact, it makes so many events stand out that it becomes the norm. Even if you fine-tune your IPS, and you got the time at present to fine-tune your IPS, you still get in the habit of ignoring certain events. What if you really could make them stand out? What if we could not only map the GeoIP but all with the organization, more specifically to our arena? When I first started doing Sphere of Influence, there was a few companies doing it, doing GeoIP, and now you're seeing a lot more companies doing it. Wireshark, Nitro, Nmap, all have plugins now that allow for GeoIP locational data, and that's a real step in the right direction. After all, if we're a company whose sphere of influence is regional, why would a Chinese university be connecting up to us? That should be a real, eye-opener straight away. And again, this is almost heresy in the internet to turn around and say limit your exposure. And but again, if we suddenly see 50 universities from the US and we're a regional bank, shouldn't that just pique our interest? So if we look at not just the GeoIP location but also the organizational data, that's something that we can really start to stand out. So we can, if I'm a health company or I'm a tech company and I've just done a health promotion, I might want to start seeing all these, visually start seeing how many health companies are connecting up to me. And this is another thing that can help. War Games, again, I've told you, my favorite movie, and visually I think there is no better way of representing large